Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNerdsNeed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And sound effects you've heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, @agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting as always from the Borough of Kings.
Spread love, it's the Brooklyn way.
Alrighty then. And you can find this here podcast on the Kliqsoftheweek Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Oh, so why am I trying to rate the exact channel that I'm on? That's good work, I'm sorry, I tell you. You can also find us on your podcast virtual place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Kliqsoftheweek Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and leave us all the 5-star reviews.
Yeah, do that. Okay, come on, do the thing. There you go. Sorry, folks. Doing one too many things. Spinning pots here. Anyway, we're going to get into, because I can save the rest of that for later, but we are going to get into spoiler-free recaps of Star Wars Andor Episode 8 and our impressions on Tales of the Jedi, which I'm going to assume is Season 1.
Right. So, I don't want to say completely spoiler-free. Let's say a spoiler light.
Okay.
Just because we're a day out and, out of respect for everyone who has not yet had the time or the inclination to watch Andor Episode 8, there are a few things that I might want to play, as in sound effects, that might prove to be spoiler alerts.
Indeed.
Well, it might prove to be spoilers, that is. So, I'm going to ring the spoiler bell, but we're going to keep it as stupendously light as possible when it comes to actual spoilers. So, the mildest spoilers that are incoming in 3, 2, 1. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, shout out to Benji Games 2 for the raid. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming through to the Twitch channel. To watching the Twitch channel, and anybody else who's coming through, whether you're lurking or not. All right, so, and I also was going to say, I actually think I spoiled something earlier on Andor, but it's only a spoiler if you paid attention to the Clone Wars, because someone from the Clone Wars shows up, but it's not who you think. I'm stopped.
That's not who you think. Shout out to Madison.
Right, but it is who you think if you're thinking in terms of Rogue One. So this person was bound to come through, and that is one Saw Gerrera.
I was about to say, I wasn't gonna actually say the name.
Yeah, I mean,
what I was gonna do. What I was gonna do is do this.
Lies! Deceptions!
Because once you hear that, you know who we are referring to.
Right. I mean, his being on the show was, I want to say, had long since been said already. So it was just a matter of when he was going to show up.
Right.
So it is a big spoiler. I mean, it's a spoiler, but it's not so much of a spoiler because, like I said, it's sprinkled with Rogue One.
Right.
You kind of expect
it was more like an expected cameo.
Exactly.
Right.
So
we do get an unexpected cameo in this, but Roddykat's going to talk more about, kind of the sequence of the things that we see in this episode.
Oh, you're referring to a certain person that shows up in a certain place? That is kind of...
Sure!
Yeah.
Who's got a mixtape in another universe? He's got a SoundCloud link. I'm like, oh my God, yo!
So yeah. Oh wait, we may or may not be talking about the same person, but okay.
Seriously, we're not.
We might not be.
Holy cow! Like you didn't realize that a certain ring bearer was.
Oh yeah,
was
yeah.
running
Okay, so
around?
we are talking about the same person.
Okay,
Yeah.
now we're talking.
That's what was like
Yeah,
mixtape. I was like, wait, when did that happen?
You don't remember?
I don't remember. Oh, wait, no, I know. Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. I had to remember another movie. Yes.
What's funny about this, folks, you have to appreciate the fact that we are dancing around, keeping this as spoiler light as possible.
Indeed.
So that's why we're not dropping like overt references.
Right.
But these references, if you are in the know when it comes to genre,
Right.
and all the stuff that we cover here on the Comic Book Chronicles, you know exactly what I'm referring to.
Right. I was going to say that this person has pretty much done the pop culture trifecta, but I guess it would also depend on what is your makeup of this trifecta. Because as far as I know, this person has.
It could be a trifecta. It could be a Mount Rushmore.
It is definitely a trifecta, but it's not. Yeah, because if you think of the one other property that, as far as I remember, that this person has not been in, he hasn't done that one yet, or at least that I can remember. But he's definitely hit.
Star Trek?
Huh? Okay, well, see that's a quadrilogy. Then it was like, not quadrilogy.
That's what I mean. Well, let's say what would the fourth one be? If we're talking Marvel,
DC.
Oh, DC.
Yeah. Because I don't remember if he's done DC or not.
Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and
I guess Trek, but like I said, it depends.
Yeah,
but
be the Rushmore.
Yeah. But he's made the rounds. Matter of fact, I guess this makes his second outing in one of the in Star Wars universe for certain.
Right.
So, just to give you a little view of something, but without saying too much further.
About it, I was about to say, I'm sorry to linger on this because now I'm just like, do we just like put fantasy into one category because that throws in like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones.
Well,
fantasy magic, you know what I mean?
Right. I was thinking current though, but I guess that still counts. Meaning currently actively going, I should say.
Oh, no, I'm not even thinking about actively going because if you think about it, it's like, like checking off like your nerd credentials.
Right.
Your genre credentials.
Right.
Some things go way back. Like if you think about it, Liv Tyler has already checked off 2 of them.
That's true. Yes.
So, but anyway, I'm sorry, folks. We definitely went on a tangent there because that's what we do when we're talking about stuff that we love on the Comic Book Chronicles.
Indeed. So, yeah. So, I'll just go ahead and say that there is a few different stories that we get touched on. As a matter of fact, as I said earlier before the show, we get to see a lot of people that pretty much everybody shows up. Pretty much. Mm-hmm. Bix is back. We're glad to see her because we wasn't sure we were going to see her again. Vale and Cinta.
Looking good as always, Bix.
Yeah, and running like a motherfucker too. But anyway, so we get to see even Cassie's mom. She shows up for a second, or adopted mom,
right?
Or
who's not doing well.
No, not doing quite well. But pretty much everybody, we have seen of the main cast has shown up in this particular episode within different parts that seem to be all starting to come together. And we also get an update on what Cassian or what and where Cassian is at this point and what he's doing. And yeah, without going too far into that, yeah, he's not in the best place. But some have likened the place he's in to another of George Lucas's old first movie. But I guess I didn't make that reference right off the bat, but I can see it now. Either way, like I said, we kind of get updates on everybody, and including that one. I'm going to just call him Sniveling because even though he doesn't, the Cyril, the dude,
yes,
who I really hope something happens to him, like
something
badly. Yes, but
right.
He's
the character that we're all meant to hate.
Right, but he seems to be starting to potentially starting to fail upwards.
Yeah.
Because basically what happens to him in this episode, yeah, I can't say that's just going to be the end of it, and it's looking to be the how that's been falling into place. So, nevertheless, I think that's pretty much it. Without giving up too any actual details, like I said, the two guest appearances, let's say one expected, the other one not expected, happen in two different places on the program. Like I was like, weird. I didn't think we were gonna get all of this in this one episode, but here we are.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier prior to the show that this was a good episode for updating us all on where most of the storylines are, right? We've kind of touched upon several different sets of characters and locales, and this episode seems to be putting certain pieces into play and into position to set up what we've been talking about, which is the final 3-episode arc. So we're not quite there at the final 3, but we're leading into the 9th episode, which ends this most recent 3-episode arc. So we'll see how we transition from this arc into the final one.
Yep. Yeah, and we were talking about before the show that whether Cassian is going to stay where he is up until he gets into that last arc, or whether things is going to move for him prior to that. Like I said, without giving up anything. I mean, you already know where he is if you've seen the last episode, but still, if you haven't seen this episode,
like we said, we're trying to keep it as spoiler light as possible while giving us a chance to talk about how much we really like the show. Ultimately, I have to say this has given us so much more reason to really appreciate what Rogue One gave us, which is a non-Jedi story, and we're about to get into what everyone wants, which is Jedi.
Yep.
Right? What the mainstream fans want, right? Because we've heard in recent days that Andor seems to not be catching on with the mainstream Star Wars fan. And that's unfortunate because they're missing out. And I appreciate where they are coming from. Because as a former role player, a Star Wars role player, like playing the role-playing game, I did not want to play a non-Jedi character. I really wanted to play a Jedi character.
Right. And that's usually how it kind of goes.
Everyone else did not.
Right.
And I was the holdout. And I kind of messed up the campaign just a little by bringing a Jedi along, right? So they had to tailor things just a little bit.
Just loyalty, right? Yes.
Because everyone was a pilot. I'm like, come on, this is lame, right?
You would be surprised to know that in certain Star Wars video games, people kind of felt that same way as you did, but they were not given. As a matter of fact, you had to work pretty hard for it to get to that point. So, and people were kind of upset about it until they just relented and said, all right, fine, you can just go ahead and be a Jedi.
Right. And I appreciate that. I do. Because, I'm not a Star Wars novel reader.
Right.
Right. And I think this has proven to be, and it obviously started with Rogue One. This has proven to be much more of an in-depth study of what the rest of the galaxy is going through, right? Outside of the Skywalker saga. Right. Obviously, Rebels gives us a great look into it, but that's still Jedi-centric.
Right, but yeah, they still
think about it.
Yeah.
Right? That's still Jedi-centric. And so, ultimately, but at least Rebels gives you like that person, like that person who is a Jedi, but in hiding, right? This is obviously post-Order 66. But ultimately, what this series is doing, obviously still being post Order 66, is just giving us the sense of what imperial oppression looks like in Star Wars.
Right, on the ground.
Exactly, from a ground level, regular person, non-Jedi point of view.
And see, and I will say this: it's been said before, and I know this is a sentiment that a lot of people don't like. But Star Wars, I love the Jedi and the Sith thing. Great, it's the backbone of the whole universe. But there are more stories going on in the Star Wars universe, as we have seen with Rogue One and this, and lightly in Rebels and other places. I guess Resistance also counts in that also, but I haven't seen Resistance enough to know. What the deal is for that one. But nevertheless, there's more stories going on in the Star Wars universe than just Jedi versus Sith.
Right.
And can be good stories.
Right. And that's what's funny. Like I said, what's funny is that it just takes time for someone to appreciate that as, like my primary fandom is not Star Wars.
Right.
Right. I know that for some people it is. And it's those people who are much more readily adaptable to the non-Jedi stories.
Right.
Right. So it takes time for the people who get into it because they want a lightsaber or they want a lightsaber fight to get comfortable with these types of stories. And I hope more people are getting comfortable with it because this Andor show is exceptional.
Yeah.
I think it's more than anyone thought it would be. And they're giving this story plenty of room to breathe with 12 episodes.
Yeah, and like I said, I believe I probably said with the first episode, I am looking forward to where it ends and how close to Rogue One it's going to end with.
Right.
In that. So, but we shall see. We still got a few episodes to go with that. Unless you got something else to say, we can push on to Tales of the Jedi.
Yes, we will move on to Tales of the Jedi, which is like a short anthology animated series. And if I say one name or one term, you will understand the motivations behind these separate they're not really shorts. They're longer than shorts, I think. They're
debatable. I mean,
right, it's kind of borderline.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you think about it, like if it was a half-hour show with commercials, it would be a half-hour show.
Right.
Like each one.
I think these would be considered shorts. These can be considered shorts, I would say.
Well, like you said, it's debatable. I'm not going to debate it.
Yeah.
Point being, it's an anthology, right?
Right.
And what we have are these 6 episodes. And like I said, there's one name and one term that basically defines these shows. Dave Filoni and the Filoni verse, or the Filoni verse corner of the Star Wars universe. So
can't say I've heard that term.
That says
but yes.
so much, right? It says so much right there just by saying those two things. And I guess I'll let Roddykat pick it up from here. But what was enjoyable about this is, one, it gives you that taste of Jedi stuff, right? Lightsaber stuff, Force stuff, all that stuff. 2, it fills in some of the gaps that are in the prequel movies, right? Between the prequel movies and Clone Wars, right? Some of the gaps, right? They weren't necessarily necessary gaps that needed to be filled, maybe except for a couple of characters whose fate was left up in the air, but was actually revealed in a couple of these episodes. So I will leave it now to Roddykat to pick up from there.
Fair enough. So I will go so far as to say that if you have not watched season 7 of the Clone Wars, which is the last season of the Clone Wars, you may want to before watching this, because it will make at the very least a couple of episodes. Well, one in particular episode specifically. It'll fill in so much about that. That said, but yes, like Agent 70 said, there are some key points of the or I guess shortly after, some key points of the Clone Wars that some of these, a couple of these, kind of dive into, and even before, actually, now that I think about it, because the whole middle section is kind of.
I was about to say it's between episodes 1 and 2.
Right. like either before, before the prequels, and like Agent 70 just said, after 1 and 2, or between 1 and 2. So
right. Right. There's some big gaps between 1 and 2 that are ripe for story mining, and Filoni jumped right into one of them.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget the fact that Clone Wars pretty much starts before, like between 2 and 3. Right. And also the Jindy, I feel like they also took a slight bit from the Jindy Tartakovsky Star Wars, just a little bit, but I feel like that is, while it's not canon, is still canon, because I feel like if you watch that before you watch the Clone Wars, you will get so much more out of you will get some more out of Clone Wars, especially with a couple of characters. But that's neither here nor there. I think that's probably on Disney Plus. But yeah, you got 6 shorts that deal with 2 Force users. I'll go so far as to say that. Yes.
Right. Basically revolves around 2 kind of main characters.
Yeah, I would say both in their own ways fan favorite. One definitely, the other one is you love to hate them.
Right. But you get to see let's say a heel turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get to see how one character, actually you get to see how one character gets to a certain place, but you also see that with the other character in different time frames, I guess.
I was very sad to see the fate of that one character that I was referring to.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how that happened. I'm like, damn, yo.
I know, I was too, because I was like, that didn't need to happen.
I'm like, and they showed, I was like, damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, if you wondered about a certain character, of
a lot of us wondered.
Yeah, because that kind of showed up and then was not there.
Right.
During the prequels, you will get the answer to that in one of these shorts. So it was, I would say pour one out for this character. I'm not going to say the names, but
yeah, seriously. I mean, this is one of those times when I kind of sympathize with what Anakin is feeling when he says this.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, in a way, some of that kind of comes into play with that last one.
Yeah.
But also, so I was telling Agent 70 real quick before the show, I had just finished. I did watch season 7 of the Clone Wars before I watched Tales of the Jedi, and I appreciated the way that it ended, even though I was like, wait, this is how they ended it?
Yeah. We're all going to die!
So it was like, okay, and I was like, okay, and just like I was telling the agents, I was like, wait, there's some more questions I had about a couple of characters near the end, and Tales of the Jedi kind of gives us an answer with those two characters, but still,
we're all going to burn. We're all going to die.
But still, questions are still left, which, as we were talking before the show, may possibly be addressed maybe in the next season of Tales of the Jedi, because I can't imagine where else this would show up.
Right.
We know Ahsoka's show is also coming up, and that might. I mean, people know Ahsoka's one of the Jedis because it's in the trailer, but Ahsoka probably won't answer anything from here, or from anything that's probably, if it's going to answer anything, it's going to come from Rebels.
Right. Right, because that's the sequence that they're going to be working with. That's the time frame.
Right. So I'm only saying that so you shouldn't expect something like that to kind of come from this and anything else. I also kind of had a problem with the fact that but I think I get it. Why was the fact that She-Hulk was on Thursday and Andor was still on Wednesday when they just dumped all of the Tales of the Jedi on Wednesday, which I get, because like I said, the way they put it out was like, okay, fine, I get it, because they weren't putting it out in like a show. Right.
I was gonna say maybe Wednesday is just Star Wars release day. I don't know. I don't know.
Good.
I was just guessing at that.
Yeah, no, because I was about to say, because after all the Marvel shows that have come out on Wednesdays,
Moved
to date,
around. Yeah.
no, that have come out on Wednesdays to date. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way,
it's very weird. Very weird.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, it's irrelevant now because She-Hulk's already out of the way. So, but it still didn't make any sense as I was watching Andor and in the run up to this show. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Tales of the Jedi, outside of the fact that it's good and you should watch it.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's excellent. And I don't know if it's vital to the story, but as Roddykat mentioned, that it definitely helps to fill in some of the gaps, and it helps to have watched all of Clone Wars before watching it. It definitely does. And I'm glad because finally Roddykat finished watching Clone Wars.
I didn't want it to be over, folks. I didn't want it to be over. And now it is. But
final.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. Final.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Because like anything else I could say about the show would probably go into spoiler territories. But you wanted to see some more of some people, you got it. That being said, I think, do you have a House of the Dragon recap? Or
oh, thanks for reminding me. That was nuts. Such an incredible final episode that sets up. I have to say, this is something I said to a dear friend who I wasn't sure if she was keeping up with House of the Dragon. I know that we had talked about it. I said, look, out of 10 episodes, the last 2 really make up for the first 8. Like, they're worth the first 8. So the last 2 really make the kind of slog to get through the first 8 is just worth it. And this last episode proved to set the stage for the coming, basically the coming war that's going to follow, kind of a civil war, as it were. So it's a great episode. I definitely think that if you are even mildly interested in fantasy and genre at all, you take a dive into this. There is not nearly as much of the sex that was, and I think they made a conscious effort to pull back from that, as there was in the OG Game of Thrones. There's obviously a lot more palace intrigue here. That's obviously the center of the show, but we also get lots of action when it comes to dragons, and that was obviously one of the big attractions of this show, and we get lots of action sequences involving dragons in this episode, and it's great. So if you have not yet watched House of the Dragon, or Hot D, as I always have a juvenile laugh whenever I use that acronym, if you have not yet watched Hot D, then you should watch it just to get to those last 2 episodes, because those last 2 episodes are really well done. Lots of excitement.
Alrighty then. And with that, then
so I was about to say, talk about the season really kind of ending on a crescendo.
Right.
That's really a great thing.
Do we know when it's coming back? Or did they have a date?
I don't know offhand,
right.
But it won't be long. My understanding is that they're already filming it, but I could be wrong. I think I might be thinking of Lord of the Rings.
And I was about to say I had a date in mind, but I think that's Bad Batch. So I'm just not going to say what I was about to say. And with that, we're done with the recap stuff. So you can unearmuff now. But we are going to get into the books of the week, starting off with Axe Judgment Day number 6.
Axe Judgment Day number 6. As I scroll up to my part of the sheet, this is number 6 of 6. So this is the last issue of the limited series proper. My understanding is that there's an Omega issue.
Yep.
That kind of puts the capper on the story and takes us into the next steps of the Marvel story, the Marvel Universe story as a whole. This issue is written by Kieron Gillen with art by Valerio Schiti and Ivan Fiorelli, or Ivan Fiorelli. Colors are by Marte Gracia, and letters are by VC's Clayton Cowles. So I'm going to ring the spoiler bell because I have some thoughts on this that definitely divulge some of the things that happen here in this issue. So I'm going to ring the spoiler bell. So if you want to tune away and not find out what transpired during the last issue of A.X.E Judgment Day #6, you may want to fast forward. So here we go. Spoilers incoming in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers incoming. So guess what, folks? That mantra, that maxim that Marvel has always stuck by, that being creating the illusion of change, is generally held to in this story. That's the spoiler that I am willing to divulge.
Okay. That works.
You know, I don't know if I want to talk about like all the details, but at the end of the day, we have the illusion of change. Now, when I say mostly kept to, there is a somewhat major character that seemingly may not make it out of this story. Someone who was in a recent movie.
Yes.
Yet it is comic books. Nothing is permanent. Except for Uncle Ben.
And Ben Foster.
I was about to say Bill Foster. Kind of makes an appearance this week.
Wait, and where?
Strange.
Wait, I read Strange, but I don't remember. Oh. I you know what? I didn't take it. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
That's not a full return. It's not a full return.
Definitely
but
not.
We do at least get a reference.
Yeah, okay. If I'm thinking about the same thing you're thinking about, I can see that, but I didn't even take it anywhere near that. But we'll get to that in a few. As far as
I'm like, it's him.
Yeah, I guess that was, but like I said, I really didn't. That's not him. It's not him.
I know it's not him. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But yeah, that's been a thing in Strange. But like I said, we get to that. But yeah, A.X.E Judgment Day. I don't know. Like we still have the Omega issue to go, so it's not over yet. However, the main part of the story, you might as well say that the last half of this book was pretty much getting into epilogue territories, and I'm not sure. I'm sure the Omega episode will probably continue down that road, but for the most part, the dust is settling. As Agent 7 said, things are getting back in place. Not fully without repercussion, because there's still some damage to be controlled. But that will shake out in the wash, surely. And yeah, like I said, we kind of left things as slightly different. Let's say some secrets. The only other big secret that from the world is out at this point, which I wasn't expecting to happen, but I guess was like, okay, because we kind of started this off with a big secret being told. So I guess it is only right that another big secret comes to light for what it's worth. Because I feel like it's still kind of one-sided on how even though there are some steps being made to kind of balance out what has already been done, but it still feels a little one-sided, and I feel like there's still going to be some one-sided hate going forward. So
yeah, and surprisingly, there are some real developments from the Hoxpox, well, the current X-Men books,
right?
Coming out of this, there's some real developments, because if you think about it, this book, and we kind of jokingly talked about it, but it's the truth. This was pitched as X-Men versus Eternals, with the Avengers kind of being caught in the middle, and that's really what happened. The ramifications in this story really fell on the sides of the Eternals and the X-Men, with the Avengers kind of just being caught in the middle. And so there is not nearly as much of an effect on the Avengers as there are on the other two groups.
Right. Yeah, and there's pretty much not much else to say about that without giving anything, the exact way. So I couldn't have said it any better myself.
There it is.
Like I said, we're not sure what the Omega issue is going to give us, and there's, I believe, probably still a couple of tie-ins to go, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But outside of that,
I think so. Just because the publishing schedules got screwed up a little bit,
right?
Things fall behind or whatever.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, we probably still do have some tie-ins left to read.
Probably a couple, yeah. But outside of that, yeah, it's pretty much in the books. That being said, we can push on to another book.
What's next?
How about we do something out of the ordinary for at least me?
Okay.
And talk about Star Trek #1 from IDW.
Ooh, yes. Let's.
Because everything else that we have I think we have almost everything here in common, maybe except for, I read the Moon Knight Annual, and I know that Roddykat read a couple things that I did not read.
Mm-hmm.
So we can cover most of that stuff in rapid fire. But let's talk about Star Trek #1, because this was something that I was hesitant to look at, but I'm glad I did. It was the last thing I read. I read it earlier this evening, just before the show. So it's relatively fresh in mind. Star Trek #1, it's published by IDW. It's written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, former guests of the Comic Book Chronicles, with art by Ramon Rosanas, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by freelancer, in this case, Clayton Cowles. And I will just say, and I Roddykat is our resident Trekker. I know the term is not Trekkie, it's Trekker.
Well,
Roddykat being our resident Trekker, at least I don't know how he compares with PCN _Dirt,
yeah,
and I know that. What's that?
I was about to say, yeah, Dirt's probably Dirt might have a little bit more on me, but I think we're fairly comparable.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say. I was going to say it's probably you guys are probably peers when it comes to being Trekkers, right? More so, you guys have much more knowledge on Trek with regards to Trek as opposed to myself and at TimDog98. So, I will say though that one of the draws for this story is that it firmly sits in an area of time that in the Star Trek timeline that I am comfortable reading about. It firmly sits in that time of post Next Generation, post Deep Space Nine. But what's great about this is that, and actually I think post Voyager, because
maybe, I guess that's right. I guess that's about right.
Right. So ultimately, it involves, as a crossover event, which is awesome, right? It involves several characters from the aforementioned shows. And at this point, I'm going to leave it to the resident Trekker to talk about the story. But I wanted to talk about why I read it and why I appreciate this. And I think Roddykat is going to agree with me when I say this is a potential click of the week.
Absolutely. In fact, I do have it in my notes as such. So yeah, we have talked about this in passing about this was a thing, and it's going to be a pairing or a grouping of various Trek teams going into this. And the story, interesting enough, I don't want to say it's plausible because it is still a sci-fi show, so your plausibility kind of goes a certain way. I would definitely say that if you
it's plausible for Star Trek.
Yes, there you go. But even then, like something like this never really happened between the shows. Like, yeah, you might have had a character or two go from one show to the other, or it may show up on one show, as a one-off or as a one-off thing. But they never really did it. It's not to the extent of this, put it that way, to where this is going. So yeah, we have a team that's made up of of various Star Trek folks. I would say of every show prior to, let's say, Discovery, Strange New World, I would say there's two characters I'm not too terribly familiar. They could be new, or they could be from there, but there is definitely one of them definitely has a callback to like Enterprise slash original series type stuff. Benji Games 2 says I should have picked this one up. If you're a Trek, if you're a Trek fan, especially let's say TNG, DS9, that era, I think you will probably appreciate this book. There's a lot of references there. I mean, even there's some reference to TOS also in here. I was halfway expecting there to be an animated series reference or two or someone, but that didn't happen. So didn't quite go the whole gambit. But the book is still young, so we'll see. We'll see. Nevertheless, like I said, there is a mission that has to do with, and if you're watching the video version of the show, you can see the cover and who's involved. The return of one Benjamin Sisko, which has been in the news. And
the Sisko, it's the Sisko.
Yes, the Sisko is back, ladies and gentlemen, for reasons he barely knows, but he has a thing in mind that is leading him to do. Now, the funniest thing about this mission, is, without giving too much away, is he ends up having to go to someone for help. And that part was, to me at first, until the explanation happened, was not didn't seem all that plausible to me. Because if you think about, and if I said a name, if you think about if you think about how he's dealt with this person,
their mutual history, right?
Yes,
their mutual history, their interactions.
Exactly. Yeah. And you would think that this would not happen, but it makes sense, and that's what I enjoyed about it. It was like, okay, you know what, that. At first, it didn't make any sense until that said something. I was like, don't think it would have happened that easily, but it did, but it still makes sense.
What I was gonna say is, I think these two characters achieved, if not détente, at least a mutual respect.
Yes,
and which they always had.
Right.
But obviously, with Worf serving on DS9 and whatnot, I'm sure there was an evolution that we never saw on DS9.
Right. Well, the beautiful part about it is, like I said, because of how it's explained here, they found themselves having common ground.
Yeah, they found themselves a legitimate reason.
Right, and they have common ground in that, in different ways. So, yeah. So I will go so far as to say that at this point. As Agent 7 has said earlier, there's even some Voyager involvement going on here. There's a lot of references to things, of course, you would find in the Star Trek books such as this, and without giving any of them away, there's some good ones if you have a pretty decent history with Trek, I will say.
Sure.
Some not so deep cuts, some kind of deep cuts.
And that's what's important.
Right.
Because if everything's a deep cut, then people like me won't get it, or we'll be racking our memories trying to figure it out, because you know what, folks?
Boy, I'm getting too old for this shit.
So at the end of the day, I really appreciated this comic. I'm going to be keeping up with it going forward. So, that's a rare thing for me when it comes to these Star Trek books.
Yeah.
I generally kind of sit back and let Roddykat go on about the various Star Trek books that get published. But this is something that is up my alley, because it speaks to me as, it's kind of geared towards people like me who are, fans, but not Trekkers.
Right. Right. There was something else I was going to say on that note, but I don't remember what it is. So it's probably just as well that we move on. In that, I will reiterate what I said in that potential click of the week. It's a potential, not an actual click just yet. We'll see.
Right.
Oh, there was a line said from one of the characters, by the way, that was like, wait, they're still saying that in the 24th/25th century? Or
What line is that?
you'll love to hear it.
Oh, I did not even bump on that, to be honest.
Nah, it just was like, okay, that, you know, like I said, it's just something I noticed. I wasn't bristling too hard on it, but I was like, it was just funny to see in a Star Trek book. So, but nonetheless, fun to be had. I'm also looking forward to the next book. I was looking up to see how many issues this book was, because I believe this is a mini series. No, it's ongoing. I'm sorry, it is ongoing, because I think that was in the thing. So I hope it picks up and has legs, because I would like to see this continue to go. Because some of the other Star Trek books, like Shattered Mirror, not Shattered Mirror, that's the Transformers one, but the Mirror War stuff it was some pretty good Trek. We even got Mirrored to TNG, so that was some very good stuff. But they seem to keep on going with that, and I hope that this continues to do the same thing. That being said, we can move on to something else, though.
Sure. So,
What's next?
how about we do one more book before we go to rapid fire? Because, we definitely have several books in common. Do you want to cover Strange Academy Finals?
It was either going to be that or Strange, so yeah, let's do Strange Academy.
All right, Strange Academy Finals #1 is written by Scotty Young with art by Humberto Ramos. Colors are by Edgar Delgado and letters are by VC's Clayton Cowles here, working under the umbrella of virtual calligraphy in the Marvel, under the employ of Marvel Comics. So, I will say that this is a welcome return to the students. I don't want to say necessarily the halls of the Strange Academy per se. Well, we do return there, but we have been away from the students of the Strange Academy for a little while. And what was great about the opening, let's say 4 pages of this book, is that it served as a nice little recap of what's been happening over the last, essentially over the last several arcs of the book. Because there were 2 arcs, if I'm not mistaken, right? 2 volumes, that is, of Strange Academy.
Correct, and it was basically pretty much the last volume of the
right
that this is coming out of.
So that second volume is what's recapped here, right. And I appreciated that because, as I've said before, we read a lot of comics, folks, and while we have a ton of comic book knowledge at our fingertips and in the recesses of our brains, sometimes when it comes to this recent stuff, we're always reading so much it's hard to remember. So I appreciated the recap in the first 4 pages. But as I said, it's nice to get an update on what's happening here. And I really like the heel turn of one of these characters, was teased and is now not fully formed, but definitely stepping into that direction. And we also get, as I said, a little bit of a look into what's actually happening in the halls of the Strange Academy. So that is a bit of a spoiler when we talk about, if you're not up on what's happened at the end of the second volume, that there has been a fracture in the student body of the Strange Academy.
Some would say,
and that is something that we delve right into in this. My understanding is that this is a limited series, although we don't have an indication of what number of issues we're going to have, unless you do.
No, I don't. Some would say there might be a civil war going on.
Exactly. Well, like I said, there's a fracture in the student body. So, at the end of the day, they may very well be looking to face each other at some point.
Yeah, that part is not necessarily known, but yes. And to go back about what you said about the heel turn of a character, I still think, just like I said, coming out of the last volume of the book, it seems to be coming out of nowhere. Because it seems strange for this character to kind of take this turn. So I'm assuming there's something else involved that may have something to do with what's on her, but
You think it's not just like teen angst?
No.
That's how they're playing it.
Yeah, but I feel like no. I think it has something to do with what something she's dealing with. That's probably going to be the cause of it.
I'm more than willing to entertain that option because it's more than plausible.
Right.
You know, it's more than plausible, but ultimately, as I've said, and I'm going to continue to say, right, even though we definitely dance around this about us being of a certain vintage, right?
Yes.
We also,
Boy, I'm getting too old for this shit.
and maybe, just maybe, it's all about the teen angst. So, you know, either way, we'll see where Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos and the rest of the creative team take the story.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that feels like dying of heartbreak.
Oh no!
Like really? That's what you're putting this on? Which now that I think about it, I wish they had. Boy, I wish they had.
Wow, that's the first time I've used that twice in an episode.
Boy, I wish they had addressed that part in Tales of the Jedi, but nevertheless, or yeah. But anyway, so yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, like I said, the whole thing with this character still feels out of left field and has nothing and can't be just. I refuse to believe that that's it. The funny part about this, there was a thing that happened when they cut back to the school that I was kind of wondering whatever happened. So there was a lesson being taught by the Scarlet Witch about perception reality, something she knows a pretty good bit about. And there was a student that she involves in the lesson at first. Because right before that happened, I was like, are they going to do anything for this student? Because this student's just pretty much just out there. And sure enough, that ends up, being a part of the lesson. And it was like, okay, good. I don't know if that's going to stick, but I appreciate them addressing that.
Right. It's nice that they looped that particular student into the story the way they did.
Right. Because every time we see this character, it's like they're just kind of on the outs. Just kind of
literally.
Yes, exactly. Just kind of there.
They're on the outside, literally.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, come on, can't leave this character like that. I was about to say her name, but I was about to say if you know the characters of the book, then it probably wouldn't make it that much of a difference. But you may even agree with us. Who knows? But yeah, I'm looking forward to see where this takes us, and I don't know. Agent 70 and I both love Strange Academy. I think it's safe to say that. So seeing any more of this book is always a treat. And I'm hoping that the fact that it says finals doesn't actually mean it's going to be like all we're going to get of the story.
Right. It's hard to say.
Right.
It's just hard to say. Right. What's great about this is that there's obviously about this concept is that there's obviously room for more. Whether or not they graduate them at some point, it remains to be seen.
Right.
So, all right. So I guess, do you want to do one more book or do you want to go into rapid fire?
I kind of want to do one more book since we're kind of already in the strange.
Up to you.
We're already in the strange part of the universe. I figure we might as well go ahead and do that one.
All right. So Strange number 7 is written by Jed MacKay, who, at least according to my list, and I think Roddykat's as well, wrote according to my list only, wrote 3 of the books I read this week.
I believe that's true. Yeah. Yes,
right?
Actually, that is true.
Right, 3 of them for me. Because the one book that I do not have in common with Roddykat, is also written by Jed MacKay.
Right.
So Strange number 7 is written by Jed MacKay with pencils by Marcelo Ferreira, inks by Roberto Poggi, colors by Hava Tartaglia, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So this issue comes right on the heels of Strange number 6 and finds us dealing with the revelation of the previous issue, of the fate of the previous Sorcerer Supreme of this dimension. And what the fate of that character has become, right? There's a lot of exposition being, you're kind of filling in a lot of the gaps of how we got to this point, because of the reveal from last issue. And this is where that cameo appearance of that character who Roddykat threw in, Bill Foster, occurs.
Yes.
And I'll hand it off to Roddykat.
So yes, the main crux of this book is of this issue is that there's a lot of, as Agent Sam said, there is a lot of exposition because there's some things that needed to be hashed out between the two characters involved, that being Clea and the Harvest Man, because of said revelation. But also, as I say in my notes, it still stands as an interesting metaphor for their relationship, that things are the way they are at this point. And we also get the conditions of why things are the way they are.
Right.
So that is saying that potentially we can see a reversal or an ending of this at some point, whether, depending on how long Jed McKay and crew and possibly Sales bear it out to be this way.
Right. The potential is there.
Right.
The potential has been established.
So, or they could tease it out until the next Doctor Strange movie, whenever that might be. Who's even to say?
Who knows?
But the one thing we did know is, like, as Agent 70 said earlier, actually, yes, things that end up happening in the Marvel Universe doesn't always stick.
Right.
And this potentially is one of those where things can kind of get back, at some point, get back into status quo at some point. But we are treated into with a pretty decent story, I think, because Clea becoming the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth, and the Warlord of Manhattan, which is funny, has been entertaining so far. Like I said, they could kind of continue to do some things with this, if things hold up. So they.
Well, they've done a really good. McKay's done a really good job of really fleshing out the Clea character.
Yeah, indeed.
Right, because like it or not, she definitely fell into that that category of character who was a love interest and not much more.
Right. Even though
we've gotten a lot of depth and fleshing out of the character, not just in this limited series, but in some of the previous Strange stuff.
Right.
But ultimately, much more so in this series, because we've really seen how the character would interact with the duties and the burden of being the Sorcerer Supreme and acting as a hero, as opposed to what the characters normally had to deal with in the Dark Dimension.
Right.
I would add that we do have a tease at the end of the issue of revelations upcoming about the Blasphemy Cartel, which is the concept that has been introduced in this series.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an interesting follow-up to several old concepts that have reared their head, that has reared its head in not just this book, but also in the recent Ghost Rider series. That being a former S.H.I.E.L.D., a branch of S.H.I.E.L.D. that dealt with magic.
Right.
And so, interestingly enough, I wonder if that's a primer. The same way this is kind of a primer for the MCU stuff, with the introduction, spoiler alert, of Clea at the end of Multiverse of Madness.
I mean, possibly, right? Possibly, because, if you think about the last issue and how much they dove into that whole thing with that section of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, yeah, they're trying to do something with it.
Right. So it's interesting that, the concept has popped up in two different kind of mystic Marvel books.
Right. As to bring it back into a thing.
Right.
I found that end kind of interesting in another way, because it calls back to some would say, regrettable is not the word, but a Spider-Man arc that people groan about, and it has gone so far as to made its way into a recent movie that has to do with this particular cartel. And I found that kind of funny when I was, because that's pretty much how I read it. If you know what I'm talking about.
No.
Basically, the one member of the Blasphemy cartel pretty much explained what they had to do to get to the position they're in, and to make people not know who, make themselves lost to the world.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and that kind of reminded me of that particular Spider-Man thing. I was like, so they did that to themselves in a way.
Got it.
But nevertheless, in this respect, I was like, okay, it's a good use of that, and for reasons that they kind of go into, and it makes sense in this context, in that Spider-Man thing, and also the movie. You know, you can say whatever with that. Nevertheless, Strange Number 7 is pretty good. Jed MacKay still continues to write some pretty good stuff, including the couple of books that will be talked about in a few, most definitely. And with that, I think we can go ahead and go to Rapid Fire.
All right, spinning it up, folks.
I ain't got time to bleed.
Alrighty, first up is Amazing Spider-Man number 12. It's written by Zeb Wells with pencils by John Romita Jr., inks by Scott Hanna, colors by Marcio Moniz, and letters by VC's Joe, our favorite lettering paisan, Caramagna. Interestingly enough, in this issue, again, literally follows up on the previous issue, the events of the previous issue. There is a mystery here that kind of plays out over the course of the issue, and we kind of get exactly what's on the cover, but the hint, the spoiler the mild spoiler I'll throw in is that we actually get a multiple of what happens on the cover, and that's essentially what this story, this book, this issue covers. So I'll let Roddykat add anything else.
I was gonna say, yeah, you might say there was a slight swerve in this issue, because of the fact that while it does, you might think it goes one way and it might be one person. And that's kind of what last couple of issues, including this one, have been kind of putting forth. And they just said, well, it's not that much of a swerve in that it is who you think it is, but also it is who you think it is. So
exactly.
I'm not sure how to feel about that part, but I'm hoping they're going to do something with that, and then there's going to be a good explanation of that in the next issue. So that's all.
As I said, multiples, folks.
Yeah,
multiples. All right, next up is Iron Cat number 5 of 5. This is the last issue of this really fun mini-series. It's written by Jed MacKay, another Jed MacKay book for me, with art by Pere Perez, colors by Frank Darmada, and letters by VC's Ariana Maher. So, this has been a Tony Stark-centric Black Cat story. And I've always felt like this miniseries had, kind of that dual focus because of, kind of creating a reason for Tony and Black Cat to team up. Obviously, Jed MacKay's done an excellent job of building a reason for it from the ending of the previous, from an event in a previous Black Cat miniseries, by introducing the Iron Cat armor. And now we have a reason for that armor to continue to exist in the Marvel universe. And I appreciate that, by, keeping that particular concept around. But otherwise, I thought that this was a fun little story. I think we would both, and I don't want to necessarily speak for Roddykat here. I think we would both rather that Black Cat be an ongoing, but if we're going to consistently get these 5 or 6 issue limited series on a consistent basis from McKay with solid art by whoever it is that they pick, then I guess that's going to have to suffice. That's going to have to be enough for fans of McKay's work on and work with the Black Cat character. Anything to add?
No, you pretty much said it. Yeah, there is I think I can't remember if you actually said it, but there is a loose end at the end of the issue that could potentially come back into something. Whether that is going to be the case or not, we don't know. But I assumed they left that out there for a reason.
Right.
So that's it.
Right. Okay, next up for me is Moon Knight Annual #1. It's also written by Jed McKay, with art by Federico Sabatini, colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So, in one word, and it's not really a spoiler because it's on the cover, folks, this serves as a reintroduction of a character that we have just talked about in the recent past, who has a special, an eponymous special on Disney Plus, introduced just in time for spooky season, that Werewolf by Night. And this is, I don't want to say for sure, but I think this is the first time we've seen Werewolf by Night in a Marvel comic proper since the premiere of that episode, the premiere of that special presentation on Disney Plus.
Well, since that special, yes, but we have seen him before that, yes.
Right. No,
or,
obviously.
Let me say that we've seen another version of him. We're not this particular version.
What comic?
Remember that taboo written Werewolf or not with the new werewolf?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You are correct. I stand corrected because I completely forgot about that because, as Roddykat mentioned, it is a different version of the character. Mm-hmm. The character that we talked about that's featured in the eponymous Disney Plus special Werewolf by Night is the character that appears in this book. So I'm glad that we were able to clarify that. Ultimately, the story serves to reintroduce several concepts. One being Werewolf by Night. 2, a major supporting character from Moon Knight's past, that being Marlene Allron. A little callback to older readers of the Moon Knight mythos. And so it's kind of cool that we catch up with the concept of her character and their history, which I did not know. I was very surprised to see some of the details that were revealed in this issue that are central to the plot of this issue that were revealed because I did not know them. So, McKay, and one of the reasons why I read this, I'm not that big on the annuals. I haven't been, but anytime the writer of the main book actually partakes in writing the annual, I try to keep up with that annual. I try to read that annual because I feel like there's a morsel of a story. This part of that story is going to mean something in the regular book at some point or in the main story of the Marvel Universe at some point. It's not just a throwaway annual story the way a lot of the annual stories have been in the past. So I would actually recommend, it's not like the strongest recommendation, but I know that Roddykat has been trying to keep up with Moon Knight. So I would say it's probably worth a read just to see what McKay may be doing with Werewolf by Night, or at least where Marvel may be taking the character and the concept, and just to see how they brought back Marlene and some of the older concepts.
Indeed, yeah, I plan on reading this when I get a chance to. I didn't have a chance to, but I hope to get to it soon.
All right.
All right, what else you got?
Next up is no, that's it actually, because we covered the two Doctor Strange related books. So for me.
All right. Well, then for myself, we have. Oh, that's weird. Flawed #2, which is the second of 6 issues, a miniseries done by Image Comics. The creative team is hometown. I say hometown to me, I should say. Writer Chuck Brown, art by Prinzi, letters by Becca Carey. So as we said in the last issue, we have a psychiatrist named Jim Ez, who is pretty much a psychiatrist by day, vigilante by night, who is on the trail of someone called the Skinwalker, who is also a serial killer. But as we find out in this issue, their paths and past may have some similar stories to it. If this is going where I think it's going, especially with the end of this issue, we have the side character of the Detective Davis, who has a run-in with the serial killer's help at the beginning of the story. But then the rest of the issue is Jim kind of trying to get some information from this one dude that she had not necessarily stolen, but he had pretty much kidnapped to get some information, let's just say, in order for her to get to the main serial killer dude. She also has a talk with a family member who apparently is in the same profession, because sometimes who do doctors go to? Other doctors. Makes sense. But also in trying to get some more information. And apparently this family member has seen and studied. Yeah, she definitely did. This family member, let's just say, must have an appreciation for Jurassic Park because of a hobby she's into, that we found out in the course of this issue. We'll probably get some more into that in later stories. Don't know, but the fact that was a thing that got brought up was interesting. Yeah, I would say it's worth Benji Games too. I say it's worth picking up. If you like that first issue of Flawed, then I think you'll continue to like this one, because it is continued to further that story. Next book for me is, and actually my last book, is Batman Beyond the White Knight #6. With the creator. Oh, actually, excuse me, it's not my last book. Sorry. Script and art by Sean Murphy. Colors by Dave Stewart. Letters by Josh Reed. So, interestingly enough, after the events of last issue, Harley gets to spend time with 2 of the guys that she has feelings for. How does she does that? And it's probably not in the way you think it is. But it's a weird thing. But then Bruce messes it up because it's Bruce, of course, because he's still kind of broken. We have basically run-ins with between Dick and Jason Todd. I guess we find a little tidbit about what Jack Napier is in this particular story, because he should not actually be around in this universe anymore. But again, he is. But yeah, there are some conversations that happened in the midst of this story, and including one with Dick Grayson and one Derek Powers, who is pretty much the big bad guy here. And I guess, well, also Derek Powers is dealing with the transformation that he undergoes, which I believe, if you are a fan of Batman Beyond, probably a little bit more familiar with than I am. Because while I have watched some Batman Beyond, not that not that familiar with a whole lot of it. And at the end of this issue, it looks to be that another side story issue or miniseries is coming down the pike, because something happens to a character in Batman's life. Whether it's fatal or not, we don't know. But we shall see in the next issue to come. And for my last book, which is actually my last book, Thunderbolts number 3. Granted, I just skimmed this. I'm just going to put that out there right now. So I didn't really have time to read the whole book, because there's a couple that I wanted to get to, but I didn't have time to get to it. I'm kind of upset about that, but I will definitely get to them later. Maybe I'll revisit them. Who knows? But Thunderbolts number 3 starts off with a training mission with the team. Well, actually, it starts off with a nice little moment with Blue Marvel and Monaco Rambeau, who are an item, and this, seemingly takes place after the current Defenders Beyond miniseries, which the 4th issue of that came out last week. That Blue Marvel has is a part of, but this seems like this is taking place after that because of something that he says to Monica before she goes off to do this training mission with the team that ends up in a mission involving the Red Ghost's gorillas. I believe it's the Red Ghost who has the gorillas that work for him. But nevertheless, it kind of involves in that, and then of course we see Luke Cage kind of comes in. But also after the mission happens, there is a butting of the heads of 2 lead members of the team, that being Hawkeye and Monica Rambeau, and some words exchanged, because if they from what I last saw, if it got down into a powers match, that'd be a problem. Wasn't gonna make it out of there if some seriousness got handed to it. But nevertheless, this book still is pretty good. But the creative team of the book is writer Jim Zub. They have like guest pencilers and guest artists on the book. That being the penciler of Netho Diaz and Victor Alazaba, who are guests on this book. But colorist is Hava Tartaglia, who I think has been on the book, and BC's Ariana Maher, and Corey Pettit, who's doing the lettering on this. Oh, okay. Well, I'll get to that comment in a second, but first we are going to get into Kliqs of the Week.
Kliqs of the Week!
We didn't get anything from our other co-hosts, apparently.
That's too bad. It's one of those weeks, folks.
Yeah, I was expecting something from one of them, but I guess I didn't have a chance to read yet. So it's all down to us, folks. Do you have yours, or are you still thinking?
I am still thinking, but I'm definitely leaning towards the one book this week that really stood out. That we talked about earlier, and that being Star Trek #1. I'm really leaning towards it. I think the only other book that might come close, even though despite your misgivings about this heel turn in Strange Academy finale, or towards the end of Strange Academy finale, I really appreciated the fact that we got to revisit this group of characters, which
sure.
we've come to really become fond of and want to keep reading about. I was definitely not surprised by the end of Axe Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately, as I said earlier when we were talking about the book, the illusion of change is always there. But there are a couple of things that do change. So I think I'm leaning towards Star Trek #1. You know what? I'm just gonna just bite the bullet on that and say Star Trek #1 from IDW this week is my Kliq of the Week. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
This is because this is.
Where's that from?
What?
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Gomer Pyle.
What's that?
Gomer Pyle.
Gomer Pyle.
Surprise,
Okay, I may have to
surprise,
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say I may have to get No, actually, you know what? I'm not that big a fan of that stuff. So you know what? I'm just gonna use that as that's a one-time reference, folks. I'm not getting that as a sound effect.
Yes. The things we think about. I am just going to go ahead and say I also am going to do Star Trek #1. We're old folks, so references kind of come to us like that.
Right.
But yeah, Star Trek #1 is also going to be my click of the week because it was just that good. I'm out, and as Agent 70 has said a couple times, I am a reasonably decent Trekkie. There was some good stuff this week, and there was some stuff I didn't get a chance to get around to, which probably would have changed that. Like the 2 Jed McKay books, that I did read were good. That Batman book was actually pretty good. That Flawed book was also all right. Thunderbolts was kind of fun. I need to go back and reread it. I couldn't really give it to that because I kind of just skimmed over it and whatnot. But I was interested in what was going on there. Before we go on to the news section and then the first ad read, I'm just gonna say this to get this from the Twitch chat. Benji Games 2 said they picked up a bunch of stuff apparently. Creepshow 2, MMPR 101, Damn Them All #1, Stuff of Nightmares #1. I see where you're going. You're in a Halloween mood here. Lovesick #1. All of which are Halloween tinged. TMNT, the Armageddon game #2, which I've been meaning to read that book and I didn't read Double Nightfall featured #1, and there's that's right, that Batman Hush special edition came out. And the Batman's Mystery Case book also came out.
I was gonna say I read most of that Damn Them All #1 because we do try to read #1s here on the Comic Book Chronicles. I just couldn't make my way through it. I'm not that big a fan of horror in general, right? But there's definitely some mysticism and a touch of fantasy in there. So, I was able to appreciate it for that. But, I'm not that big a spooky season person. So, when I kind of ran into a little bit of a reader's block, as it were, I jumped to Star Trek #1, and I discovered that Star Trek #1 was my cup of tea. So,
Discovery.
Nice. that satisfied my need for reading an actual #1 issue this week.
Gotcha. Benji also says he's all about him. I live part of my life around him. I'm assuming talking about the Halloween stuff.
About the spooky season stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Talking about that drives his wife nuts. Or her wife nuts. I'm actually still not sure. But nor am I, but seem to be liking it more in comics. I guess you're talking about the Star Trek stuff.
Sure.
Okay, cool. With that, we are going to go into the news section, so let's get one ad read out of the way.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink. I need a drink right now, so I may step away.
Are we still having that issue where... Now, I thought I fixed that. Benji said he couldn't hear you through the ad, so I don't know what's going on. No, because I did see some levels going on for you. So I still have to figure out what the heck's going on. Either way, we're going to get into the news section, starting off with, like I said, I'm not sure. I had to figure that out, Benji. So, we're going to get into this.
Appreciate you. I was about to say, we appreciate you watching and listening and making sure we are on point.
Absolutely. We appreciate it because we don't normally get that. But we're starting off with cinematic news as we do about this time with some sad news. Jules Bass of Rankin and Bass fame, animator and director of Rudolph and Frosty the Snowman and various other animated projects from the 70s, I guess 80s, is dead at 87. So he passed away according to his publishers. Variety brings the word of his death, confirming that Bass died Tuesday in Rye, New York, at the age of 87. Like I said, no cause of death has been given. And then it just goes into the history of Rankin and Bass, who, if you're of a certain vintage, you know the name Rankin and Bass quite. That is a part of your childhood that you will never forget.
Right.
So, Little Drummer Boy, Frosty the Snowman, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. They just a lot of stuff, and even produce some stuff you probably know. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Red Hood, reindeer, all of that.
Yeah, you'll recognize the names from the credits.
Yes, indeed.
Alrighty, next up, Black Panther. There's a Black Panther movie story. Wakanda Forever originally centered on T'Challa's evolution as a leader. So the original focus of the sequel to the first Black Panther movie was basically that, that was the focus of the movie, the evolution of T'Challa as leader of Wakanda. And obviously, once Chadwick Boseman, the actor portraying T'Challa, passed away, everything had to change, and they had to pivot very sharply into a different type of story, and it's the story that we're going to get. And this is, I'm looking forward to watching this. This is an article thanks to our very own @TimDog98 that Roddykat is utilizing for this story. So we should read this story, but ultimately, if you are a fan of this show, you know that we are going to be observing movie protocols very shortly for the premiere of Wakanda Forever.
Yep.
Very shortly. Like, it's in 2 weeks, folks.
Yeah, and I still don't have my tickets yet, but we're gonna rectify
that. Oh no!
Yeah, it's been interesting, but I'm gonna take after.
Good luck.
It'll happen.
I hope you can. I was about to say I'll be out opening night, so I won't be around. I don't know if Roddykat is going to try to watch it. If not opening night, maybe opening afternoon or maybe Friday morning.
That's the plan, because if they have more afternoon shows like they did with the last couple of movies, then yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get an afternoon show. Won't be that many people, but we'll see. Speaking of movie news, though, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanian's first trailer debuts. And as Agent 70 says, kind of bonkers.
It's nuts. It's nuts. That trailer is nuts, folks. I'll let Roddykat continue with this. The one thing I wanted to add when it comes to the fact that we're even talking about a third Ant-Man movie. We're talking about a third Ant-Man movie, folks. A third one. That I find is unbelievable to me.
Right. Not only a third Ant-Man movie, but one that seems to be kind of pivotal in the next phase, going into the next phases.
Yes.
Because, so this is what I was going to say earlier before the show. I was like, yeah, outside of anyone who would have to deal with, who would be confronting Kang first, and not counting Loki with He Who Remains, but Kang proper, the last person I would think that will be the one confronting him would be Ant-Man. So, and this is the story. Like, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, you should go check it out if you have any remote interest in the MCU at large. And I don't know. Hey, there was no Luis in here, so I'm kind of, maybe they're saving that for for another.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. I hope so.
So
'cause we know we're not getting any TI.
we definitely know
So-
that. Yes, but everybody else was there. So Hope, Cassie was there. Hope's got rocking the Janet Van Dyne cut, kinda.
Yeah.
So that was good
And it's
to see.
very nice to see. I was about to say it's very nice to see Janet
yes.
in the house. Very nice to see Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, shout
you
out to
know,
Catwoman.
Definitely, I was about to say I definitely haven't had a thing for Michelle Pfeiffer nearly as long as I have for Linda Carter. This is a inside baseball here, folks.
Yeah.
But it's very nice to see Michelle Pfeiffer in the MCU, aging very gracefully.
Yeah, and we also get some shots of Jonathan Majors as Kang to kind of round it all out. So I'm very curious as to how this movie is going to play out, because from what we see and who we see show up in this movie, there's doing some things. Because apparently there's a cameo by a person who, from what I found out, is playing a one-off character from a Hulk book, which the MCU has no stranger of doing that and making them into a kind of a major figure, or a major-ish figure. We don't know how they're going to be in this, but nevertheless, this thing is going to be something interesting. So that being said, we're going to move on to the next book. Next story.
Right. The next story is that William Jackson Harper has entered the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's the name of the actor. Sources tell Variety that the actor will appear in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, though his role remains a closely guarded secret. Marvel declined to comment on this casting in this article in Variety. So, Harper is best known for starring as Chidi Anagonye in NBC's The Good Place. And if you have not yet watched The Good Place, you should. I recommend it.
Yeah. He's also been getting a good bit of work lately. I know he was on some Peacock show, which I don't know how many people are watching anything on Peacock, but nevertheless, this dude's been steady working since The Good Place, so that's good on him. Now he's in the MCU, so cool. Good on him. We don't know, I think you may have already said it, but we don't know who he's playing.
Right. Right.
But that also kind of throws out some people's Reed Richards', or may throw out some people's Reed Richards guess, because there are people who wanted him as Reed Richards.
Ultimately, as Roddykat said, we don't know. It's a closely guarded secret.
Right. Like,
so we
still
don't know.
very well could be, but
right. Given the comic book origins of Kang the Conqueror.
Exactly. So, yeah. Next up, though, Unwrap the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special trailer, which also dropped, I think might have been the same day as the Ant-Man trailer, now that I'm thinking about it. So, yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special trailer is out. That is actually coming up on November 25th, according to this, and according to the trailer. Most of the Guardians are there, with the exception of the one that you expect to not be there, but who's to say if that particular person will or will not show up going into... as people have been speculating, going into Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So, but apparently, it's a Christmas special, so it's all that, it's pretty much that from the trailer, with the inclusion of a certain Footloose celebrity that shows up, which I guess
that was a nice include. That was a great inclusion right there.
Mm-hmm.
That was really nice.
Yes. So
literally playing himself.
Basically. So he was being spoke of in the Marvel universe, in the MCU, and now is actually in the MCU. Although,
right, and obviously Footloose is now canon in the MCU.
Exactly. So I was watching a Easter egg video for this, and it reminded me of the fact that this is not this person's first foray with Marvel properties, however, because they were in X-Men First Class.
That's correct.
So
Just not the MCU.
Correct.
As we love to stress when it comes to X-Men stuff.
Correct. Although they could tie it in. They could very well tie it in.
Yeah.
So who's to say? Benji Games who says Marvel trying to make all the money with these movies dropping. Yeah, I mean that's the whole game. The whole game. The whole game. But next up.
Ironheart news. Kree Summer is the latest to join the Marvel series amid more Sacha Baron Cohen chatter. So veteran, I did not know she was a Canadian-American voice actress. She's not just a voice actress. She's on a different world. Kree Summer has joined the cast. I know she's more voice actress now than she was back in the 80s.
But I'm with you.
Right. Kree Summer has joined the cast of Marvel's upcoming Disney Plus series Ironheart. Sources have told Deadline a rep for Marvel again declined comment. So Deadline also reported earlier this month that Sacha Baron Cohen has also been tapped for a role in the series. So there is some more proof on that, but no confirmation from Marvel.
Yeah, apparently Ironheart is going to be 6 episodes, which I don't remember if we already had that piece of information or not. But I'm happy to see Kree Summers anywhere, so this is welcome. This is welcome news for me because I loved me some Freddie Brooks back in the day, and all of her very prolific voice work. She has voiced whole childhoods at this point, and continues to do so. Next up, though, there's a report saying that the Silver Server there's a Silver Server projects in the works at Marvel, but it may or may not be a but it's possibly going to be a special presentation like the Werewolf by Night and Guardians of the Galaxy special, according to some site. So it says here that this is going to be in Disney Plus's special presentation format. The project will feature Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer, working for Galactus, possibly not on Earth in the special, or any previously established MCU or cosmic characters will appear possibly. It says here that Marvel is reportedly planning for the Silver Surfer project to be released ahead of Fantastic Four, suggesting the Disney Plus special and film might be linked. Which makes sense, because I mean, this Guardian special is potentially going to be linked to the next Guardians movie.
Right.
So, Werewolf by Night is probably the only one so far that hasn't been linked to anything. I mean, I guess unless Children of Blade or something, and that's still kind of up in the air. So who's to say what's going on with that at this point?
Right. Right now, it's still definitely in a kind of a standalone state.
Mm-hmm. Benji Games 2 says it's down for anything Silver Surfer. Yeah, well, we like some surfer around these parts. Sure. Will there be Will Toomey show up or be said in the course of this special? If they know, if they're good and proper, they will do that.
Sure.
But anyway, next up.
I mean, at the end of the day, if there is a standalone, it probably is going to be about Norrin Radd and Shalabal.
Oh, you saying they're doing his origin?
A prequel.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
That's possible. Quite possible.
That's my guess. Is that it would be an origin?
Yeah.
Like a prequel to an FF movie proper.
Yeah.
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, like because he's already the surfer, and then he's looking back as to how he got there, and then kind of goes into a place. Yeah, that's I can see that.
Right. I mean, that's an option.
Yeah,
it's an option, folks. You know, this is pure conjecture on my part.
Yeah. So next up.
All right. Next up. So because Charlie Cox probably wants someone else to make out with. In speaking with the Hollywood, listen, I don't blame him.
Huh?
You know, the Hollywood report. In speaking with the Hollywood Reporter to discuss his role in the She-Hulk Attorney at Law series, Charlie Cox was asked whether he wants to see Iron Fist's Colleen Wing back in the MCU. The Daredevil actor was enthusiastic in his hopes to not only see her return, but also his fellow Netflix Marvel stars, and humorously stated he would put in a good word for them with Marvel. Yeah, I would like to see Jessica Henwick come back and reprise the role of Colleen Wing, especially now. I completely forgot about what happened at the end of Iron Fist season 2 because I tried to ignore it. What happened to the Colleen Wing character?
Wait, was Iron Fist season 2 last, or was it Daredevil season 3? I mean, that it has nothing to do with her part, but I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah, okay.
I don't remember.
Gotcha. But doggone, I'm end up having to watch that stupid thing, aren't I?
No, you don't have to. Just read the spoilers. Don't hurt yourself, man.
You know,
nobody hurt you like that.
You know me
up.
better than that.
It's self-harm.
You know
man.
me. You know me better than that. I gotta know.
Masochist.
Yeah, a little bit. Next up, though, She-Hulk's missing episode explained by MCU director. So, Kat Corio, actually, is it Corio or Coro? I apologize either way. Explains why the MCU show is missing an episode from season 1. It appears that, okay, come on now. In a recent interview with the Direct, she explains why the show ended up going from its planned 10 episodes to only 9. Coro makes it clear that episode 10 doesn't actually exist and wasn't filmed, explaining that it really just came down to 9 episodes being the optimal number to tell the story they envisioned. Although, I don't know, I can see why it could have gone another episode, honestly, with the way it ended. But it says a quote here: "One of the most amazing experiences I had as a creator and as an artist is Marvel is not bound by the same rules as other TV shows have to be 22 minutes. It helps that they're also on Disney Plus, so where that is less of a factor. And the story really dictated the length of the season. And so as the story came into focus and as we started putting the pieces together, it landed at 9. Could have been 8, could have been 11, and it's the same with the length of the episodes. There isn't a number you have to hit. It really is best for the episode, which in my opinion is how it should be," end quote. So yeah, it was 2 seasons of Iron Fist. I'm just lamenting the fact, Benji, that I don't want to have to go back and watch it because I never did watch the second season.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to save. I think I suffered through those 2 seasons, so I kind of vaguely remember what happened, but I try to block it out, and suppress those memories, folks.
And yes, Finn Jones does suck. We can agree on that. Next up.
Yes. That's why. That's the only reason why we talk about it in such disdain.
Yep.
With such disdain.
Yep.
So, next up, Carrie Condon, who voices Tony Stark's artificial intelligence Friday in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has expressed interest in potentially making her live-action debut in the franchise. Condon has been voicing Friday in the MCU since 2015, when she replaced Paul Bettany's Jarvis after, obviously, the character evolved into Vision in Age of Ultron. So ever since, Condon has been the voice inside the Iron Man suits, and that's essentially the gist of the story.
Okay, folks. If somebody came up to you and asked you, "Hey, are you ready to go get into the MCU?" You say yes. Just saying. I mean, unless you just don't want to act in for I'm ready to be in the MCU at this point.
Hell yeah!
So, basically, it's kind of a no-brainer. But there are some people who probably would think otherwise. So, it is what it is. Kiki Palmer says, "I'm ready for Rogue," following X-Men fan casting. Apparently, when asked by comicbook.com if her vocal acceptance of taking on Rogue resulted in any talks with Marvel Studio, Palmer joked, "That's confidential, sugar." No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I just know that the fans, the way that the fans have me booked, honey, a line. I gotta do a gig every week. She is working a whole lot. Shout out to Kiki Palmer. So if we're adding Marvel to it, hey, let's do it. I'm ready for Rogue. So she would be kind of a youngish Rogue, but you know what? So was Anna Paquin when she did it. So
I was about to say, how old is she?
She's like 20-ish. Well, no, she's in her early 20s, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say she's born in 93.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 20. Oh no, she's 29. Excuse me. I put her way younger than what she actually was. But still,
she's in her late 20s.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, hopefully she can pull off that accent, because that accent is a little on the tougher side to me, just to hear convincingly. But I don't live. I've jokingly said already once tonight that I'm a coastal Northeast elite. So I am not familiar with how that is supposed to sound. I'm familiar with the animated series.
Well, as a Southerner born and raised, and folks can hear me talk already. The accent that Rogue in the both Anna Paquin and in the animated series was kind of put on a good bit. Yes, there are some people with a good bit of drawl that down here like that, but nah, that's almost to the point cartoonishly put on as an accent.
Gotcha.
So, what she could do can't be any better or worse than what has already been presented to us in that fashion.
Right.
Put it that way.
Alrighty.
Next up,
Doctor Who. Man, I wish this was rotated to Roddykat.
I mean, I could do
Doctor Who. No. Doctor Who reveals. There's a reason why I wanted to hold on to this. Doctor Who reveals the 14th Doctor, and it's not who you think. That is the only reason why I held on to this story. So this story contains major spoilers for The Power of the Doctor, Doctor Who's third and final 2022 special, which aired just 4 days ago on BBC One. In the newly aired special, The Power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor regenerates into the 14th Doctor. However, the actor who emerges is not the expected Ncuti Gatwa. Spoiler bell.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to know who the 14th Doctor is, you may want to mute right now. And you don't want to look at the screen if you are on.
Yeah.
If you're
exactly.
watching the show.
Although I just got rid of that evidence, but it's already on there for a little too late. So.
Right. Yeah. The 14th Doctor is none other than a previous Doctor.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm sitting here
I
like.
won't spoil the whole thing, but it's a previous Doctor.
So and it's a fan favorite Doctor at that. Of the series, of the newer series, I should say. So I am enough of a Doctor Who fan to know that you can get away with pretty much anything in Doctor Who. This feels like it would go against that, but also don't know how they played it off, because Doctor Who regenerations usually can go all kind of, especially with the newer ones, can go all kind of different ways. And this image that they're putting out, or this image that on this article, is curious in that, because I'm sure that may have some reasoning as to why the regeneration happened the way it is, or not, because like I said, a similar type of regeneration such as this looks like has happened before, but not the actual thing that happened. So, but long story short, yeah, so a fan favorite Doctor is back for a few episodes, and then I guess they are going to transition into the actual new Doctor Who, which is going to be the 15th now. So I am looking forward to seeing how they explained this, and that's all I got to say about that. Although I'm not up on the Who, and I've not seen any of Jodie Whittaker's Who, but I'm sure I will catch up on it sometime. Next up, though.
Next up,
Damon.
I was about to say.
What's that?
No. I was just gonna say, interestingly enough, I did not know that you were not up on the current Doctor Who.
Right. Because matter of fact, I don't think I'm up on. I've seen some episodes of the farmer one before this one, before Jodie Whittaker, and I haven't seen any of this one, including leading up to her, because there was a couple things I've been wanting to see. I don't actually, because I don't have BBC, and I don't know if there's another. Well, there is a way to watch that stuff, but
of course, there's always a way. But yeah, I get it. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Carry on.
It's okay. Damon Lindelof is developing a Star Wars film, and it now has a director. So I'm not sure how to feel about this, honestly. But Damon Lindelof, Lost, The Leftovers, Watchmen, or the HBO Watchmen, I should say, is co-writing a script which will be directed by Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, who directed 2 episodes of Miss Marvel. Excuse me. It says here that Lindelof is a longtime Star Wars fan, and earlier this week, rumors began circulating that he was co-writing a film for the franchise. Now, Deadline reports that though the film is still being written, Obaid Chinoy was hired early on so that she could have input on the development. So we shall see. I think Damon Lindelof has been trying to get a Star Wars movie off the ground for a good while now. And I guess it is, if I remember correctly. So I guess it's finally happening for him. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Don't end up like Lost.
Oh no!
Because if you know how that ended, no one wants that. Next up,
I was about to say I actually have never watched the majority of Lost.
I haven't either.
I guess I'm in the minority.
Yeah, I definitely watched it at the beginning and kind of fell off. And then somehow ended up watching the end of it, and I'm like, okay.
I watched it early when it was like the talk of the town. Right. And I just never continued.
Right, when they started doing those side flashes, and the multiverse stuff, or I guess you could say, or things like that. I'm like, okay.
Right. So, alrighty. Next up. We've heard rumors, apparently. There's a new rumor that suggests that Lucasfilm is developing a live-action Star Wars series centered on not always our favorite character from Rebels. Right? So according to industry insider Daniel RPK via the Diz Insider, not the Dis Insider, but the Diz Insider, as in the Disney Insider, Iman Esfandi, we know that this actor has been cast as Ezra Bridger. And Esfandi has signed a deal to star as Ezra in his own live-action Star Wars thing, which will take place after the events of Ahsoka. It is unknown at this time if the untitled series will be a direct sequel to Star Wars Rebels, but Daniel RPK has noted that the story is currently centered around only Ezra and not any of the other Rebels characters. Again, this is a rumor, so...
But I ain't one of the gospel, so you ain't heard that from me.
Right. So this is the other Ezra that we don't care that much about, but possibly the one that we care slightly more about than the other Ezra that we will...
than the real life one.
Yes, than the real life one, exactly. Yeah, I don't know what that... I mean, it would make sense if they did something like that, because they're definitely trying to milk as much as they can from their properties. So if they can make stories out of certain folks, then they definitely will, or more folks than they definitely will. Probably won't see a Zeb show, which is that's probably for the best. But yeah, a Chopper show, now that would be something I'd watch. Anyway, Nicolas Cage reportedly in discussions for National Treasure sequel Return. So it says here, goes into the whole movie thing, and he's definitely not doing that show. Well, as far as we know, not doing that show that's going to be on Disney Plus. But it says here that Disney has been trying to spend the last decade trying to figure out what to do with National Treasure franchise, which again, there's the aforementioned show. There's plans for National Treasure 3 with Nick Cage, which failed to gain any real momentum throughout the years. The launch of Disney Plus gave the studio a new chance to use the IP, which again, looks at the aforementioned show is happening, because it's coming out next month, or not next month, December. And it says that show is a soft reboot of the franchise, but apparently one of the characters from the movies is returning, but not Nicolas Cage. So we'll see what happens if that, or whether they will get another movie and or put him on the show. So it says, according to a new report, that Cage's National Treasure return could be happening, and that Cage is in various stages of discussion, end quote. So we'll see what happens with that. The National Treasure movies are fun-ish, so
right.
We'll see.
Right. I like Diane Kruger, so
Yes.
I've never watched those movies for Nicolas Cage. Let's be honest.
I do, because you're going to see if he's going to go, whether he's going to get weird.
Go full Nick Cage.
Yes, exactly. So
I understand.
Next up.
Alrighty. I'm going to combine the next two. I'm going to pull a Roddykat.
Go for it.
Combine the next two stories because it makes sense. I'm going to actually take them out of sequence in our sheet, right? Because I think one helps to explain the other.
Okay.
So we have received word, official confirmation from the actor himself this week, in conjunction with a recent appearance in a recent DC film. Henry Cavill has announced that he is back playing the Man of Steel, Superman himself. He put this out on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
Yes, he posted it in a video. He said in a video posted to his Instagram feed that he is now back as Superman, and talked about that, and talked about possibly spoiling something that happens in a current DC movie that is in theaters, right? So I won't talk about that part, but it's public knowledge now that Henry Cavill has announced that he is returning as Superman to the DC universe. In a related story, right? This is a little bit of rumor, right? So again,
But I ain't one of the gospel, so you ain't heard that from me.
film pundit Robert Mayer Burnett, actually, citing a very highly placed source, recently came out and said that the reason why Cavill had not returned to the role was because of some tension between the former Warner Brothers Pictures chairman, Toby Emmerich, who recently stepped down in June, and Cavill's manager, who basically said that when asked by the studio to make a brief cameo in 2019's Shazam, the manager, Cavill's manager, basically said if he appeared in a cameo as Superman, if Cavill did, that would count as one of Henry Cavill's contracted appearances in a movie as Superman, which is essentially how it works for the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
This apparently was not well received by the DC studio, by Warner Brothers. And Emmerich, who is said to have responded, Henry Cavill is now persona non grata. He's not going to play ball with the studio. He will never be Superman again. And of course, this is pretty much why Warner Brothers was looking for its own Kevin Feige, or some simulacrum thereof. And we're going to be talking about that very shortly.
Yep, and I guess joke's on that guy, because if it is indeed he's back, which he has himself said, the joke's on that dude. Yep. And speaking of that, James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead film, TV, and animation division for DC, for DC Studios, excuse me. So perhaps they have found their Kevin Feige's or Feige.
Right, as I said, it's a simulacrum. It's a composite.
Yes. So, and I love how they use the Black Adam line in this article. The hierarchy of power in the DC universe really is changing.
Well
played.
Not after Black Adam, but probably after this.
Well, yeah. In a certain turn of events, filmmakers James Gunn and producer Peter Safran have been tapped to lead DC's film, TV, and animation efforts as co-chairs and co-CEOs of DC Studios, a newly formed division at Warner Brothers that will replace DC Films. DC Studios sounds familiar. Wish Marvel would have done something. Let me stop. The unprecedented the unprecedented move in which a top director will assume top executive post marks the end of the months-long search by Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav to replace DC Films boss Walter Hamada, who, as we talked about last week, stepped down, and we said was looking. I'm not surprised that they were in a rush to find somebody that quickly. I didn't think they would find somebody that quickly, but I'm sure that there's probably some stories that we will find out that this was already set in stone before he even left or something. But nevertheless, the curiosity here for me is, well, I guess there is no curiosity, because I think, as we might have mentioned before the show, this is an interesting failing up for James Gunn, who, found himself in some hot water for some past comments, but ended up getting double the work out of from it. So
right. I mean, I don't know if it's failing up as much as, I don't know if that's the most on point characterization, but I understand where you're coming from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, not because of his movies being bad, because they're not. I mean, everything. I mean, the Guardians of movies, Peacemaker, and the Justice. I mean, the Suicide Squad movies, have been reasonably entertaining and money making. So it makes sense that they would try to go through him to kind of try to keep that ball rolling.
Right. I'd be curious. I'm curious to see the tone. Right. And I would wager. I'd be willing to wager that Gunn is probably going to adopt a little of what Kevin Feige has done and choose to go with different tones for different characters, as opposed to kind of, living in that same, creative space that he's been in with Guardians and with Peacemaker, kind of offbeat, using offbeat characters and telling kind of stories that he would want to tell. I think maybe he's going to try to diversify what DC is offering, in addition to what he would direct, in addition to what he would say himself put out.
I would hope, but also to try to divorce them from the Snyderverse.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, they use him to kind of, they don't distance from the Snyderverse. That's kind of a mild spoiler for Peacemaker. It's still there, but it's not, right? It's not like front and center.
Right. But as you said, in tone, there potentially could be good, but we don't know. Like there's a lot we don't know. And what's going to happen. I'm just going to put this in here so I won't have to do it next week. There was a article. Of course, they were going to ask Kevin Feige how he felt about it. So, but while in talking about Wakanda Forever, which is coming out soon, and supporting James Gunn's DC movie, quote unquote, I'll be first in line. So, he says, and I quote, I speak to James almost every day. We have a wonderful thing called the Guardians of the Galaxy Hollywood holiday special, which of course, they would have in common. We also have we have a wonderful thing called the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I love Kevin Feige for this, because he's like, look, yeah, he got that job, but he still got some stuff for us coming out. So it's like, don't you lest you forget, we still got some stuff with him. But he says, Feige told the Hollywood Reporter about whether or not he's spoken with Gunn since the news broke, and that the quote that I just said came from that. How he'll have any time to work on DC until May, I don't know. But once he does have the time, I'll be very excited. I'll be first in line. End quote.
Good for him.
Yeah,
And it's and it's Kevin Feige, folks. Like I've always joked, the person he needs no titles. We know who he is.
Right. And
so
at this,
being magnanimous is definitely right up his alley.
Right. At this point, the ball is still squarely in his court. So, but he's like, you know what? Come on in. Whatever. Next up, though.
Mm-hmm. Like, seriously, magnanimous. Like that's actually like the definition of it right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next up, HBO Max's Green Lantern series, which has been in development since 2019, is apparently undergoing a creative overhaul, according to Deadline. DC and HBO Max have decided they want to go in a different direction for the series, according to sources. The focus will shift from Guy Gardner and Alan Scott and will now revolve around Jon Stewart, one of DC's first black superheroes and one of the longest-serving Green Lanterns. That's a good thing.
I'm fine with that.
It's also... I was the reason what I would second that and also add that writer showrunner Seth Graham-Smith has opted not to stay with the new project, but Berlanti Productions remains attached via its overall deal with WB-TV. Apparently Finn Whitrock and Jeremy Irvine had previously been cast as Guy Gardner and Alan Scott respectively. So I'm glad that they are going in a different direction, because we've said this before. Jon Stewart is the Green Lantern for an entire generation of kids, teens, Gen Zers, millennials, mostly millennials, that grew up watching Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. So come on, focus on Jon Stewart.
Yeah, get that man some shine. Now that being said, like the Guy Gardner thing, like he's no great loss there. The Alan Scott, I'm sure there's some people who are going to be like, well, why are they going to do this? Because Alan Scott representing the first gay Lantern.
Right.
I'm sure somebody's going to make some bones about that, and I would like to believe that it wasn't because of that reason as to why they chose to make. But I'm not making any excuses for them, because I've said in the past we don't want to make excuses about people and things we don't know about. So we don't necessarily know the full reasons why they're doing this shift change. Yeah. Right. So until we get more speculation, and let's face it, Jon Stewart, as Seven just said, is a lot of people's first Lantern, and even in the comics these days, right now. Well, doesn't have his own book, but is still. I guess he's still headlining that book. Is that book still going? That Green Lantern book still, or did it end?
I have no idea.
I don't remember seeing it.
It's been a while since I read it.
Right. So I'm not sure if it's still going on, but recently, as of recent, still prominent in the comics. That being said.
Right.
So.
Right. But ultimately, as I said, if you asked people of a certain vintage who their main Green Lantern is, right? Our vintage, I hate to say it, Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Slightly younger than us, Jon Stewart is going to be their answer.
Right. And even younger, so we'll go with Kyle Rayner, but those people.
Right.
And there's some assholes.
Right. Well, what I was gonna say is, like maybe in between our vintage and the primarily Jon Stewart vintage, they might say Kyle Rayner, because Kyle Rayner was introduced, when we were young adult comic book readers.
I was going to actually say that they would probably, it's only a select few that would probably be like Guy Gardner, because those people are probably want to be assholes in their own right, so therefore they would go, they would go the Guy Gardner route.
JLI fans, right? Justice League International fans would say that.
So, but outside of that, yeah, you're right. But
right, so ultimately, I think the decision to focus on Jon Stewart is the way to go.
I agree, and not just because I'm a fan of Jon Stewart. Euphoria's Sydney Sweeney reveals her goals for the Barbarella remake. While speaking with AP Entertainment, Sweeney discussed her new take on Barbarella, as well as some of her hopes heading into the project. Quote, Jane Fonda, she created such an incredible, iconic character, Sweeney said, and I want to hopefully just fill those shoes and give more to a whole new generation. Her outfits, sci-fi, the fun of the story. So I'm looking forward to it, end quote. So, yeah. If that still happens, hey, more power to her. Next up.
Alrighty. While the Star Trek The Next Generation cast have hinted that they do not want Star Trek Picard Season 3 to be their last adventure together, showrunner Terry Matalas did say that the season will include the passing of the baton moment that has marked other transitional moments of the franchise. Matalas and the Next Gen crew were guests at New York Comic Con, appearing during the Star Trek Picard portion of the Star Trek Universe panel. A fan asked Matalas about the possibility of Picard's final season having such a moment in which the TNG crew would pass the torch to the new generation of captains, noting its difficulty given that the current crop of Star Trek shows is spread out through periods of time. Matalas offered no details, but did confirm that such a scene is in store. Okay.
Now we go into the anime section.
in honor of my rewatch of Attack on Titan.
Yeah. I'm going to piss some people off by saying Hunter x Hunter artist remembers late Yu-Gi-Oh creator in special.
I'm sorry to laugh. I'm sorry to laugh over Roddykat's news read. Please restate what you just said.
Okay. Hunter x Hunter artist remembers late Yu-Gi-Oh creator in special tribute. And yes, I say it like that. Come at me. I know it's Hunter x Hunter. I don't care. Get mad. Either way, Hunter x Hunter actually is anime and manga, by the way, because we didn't necessarily have any anime news.
Right.
But either way, Hunter x Hunter has returned with new chapters after one of the longest hiatuses in the series' run to date, and the series creator came back with an emotional tribute to Yu-Gi-Oh's late creator, Kazuki Takahashi. Known by many fans, well, come on, yes, we know who he is. Well, some people know who he is, not everybody, but known by many fans as the creator behind the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, tragically lost his life earlier this year in an attempt to saving others from drowning in a riptide, as we ended up finding out. Famous manga creators and fans all over the world have been sharing their tributes to the beloved creator, and now that's also including Hunter x Hunter creator Yoshihiro Takashi, excuse me, among those sharing their love. Excuse me. And then it goes on to say that Hunter x Hunter is back from a 4-year hiatus, and that Takashi was also able to put in a special author's note for the magazine. But yeah, there's that. No real need to go any further than that. Next up.
So, earlier this year, reports confirmed the mastermind behind One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100 was ready to tackle a new manga challenge. News went live that One O&E was working on a new manga, and of course, fans have been waiting patiently for the writer to share a peek at the project. Ahead of its release this fall, I guess that would be next fall, or is it this fall?
Could be this fall. I mean, we're still kind of.
I was about to say we're currently in fall. So apparently, the official Twitter for One's new manga with Azuma Kyutaro has launched. It's titled Versus, as not with the same spelling as Timbaland and Swiss Beats Versus, but Versus, as in, spelled in the traditional way. And there's a sneak peek on the Twitter account. So fans, even with this posting, know little about Versus, but the first look does show some of its top characters. Okay.
And apparently it is this fall, because if I'm reading this date right, it's going to be November 26th of this year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so as far as the story goes, Versus has shared its premise and will follow 47 heroes tasked to fight against 47 demons.
Oh, jeez.
There'll be matches as part of a tournament established by so-called demon lords, so fans can expect to see some supernatural themes in the manga. Okay.
And some Dragon Ball themes in the manga.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, come on, it's a tournament. So yeah, Dragon Ball,
Yu Yu Hakusho,
Karate Kid,
yeah, any of them.
Bloodsport,
right.
the martial arts tournaments.
Dragon, yeah, all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
We're also starting to get into Toy Corner with this next one, but still kind of in the anime section. Spy Family. Somebody's gonna get me for that one too, but Spy X Family or Spy Family, however you pronounce it. Bond plush lets fans bring home the prophetic pooch. So, according to Comic Natalie, merchandising brand Movic is accepting pre-orders for a made-to-order deluxe plush of Bond through several websites. The cuddly, fluffy toy stands about 2 feet tall and retails for a fairly reasonable price of 22,000 yen, which is $150 US, with tax. Pre-orders are open through November 16th, and orders are expected to begin shipping in April 2023. Now, we'll go so far as to say that I am up on Spy Family from this week, but I did not get a chance to watch Chainsaw Man yet.
Okay.
It was a good episode of Spy Family, but it was not surprising.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was fun.
Pretty much. I'm enjoying it.
Poor you're trying to learn how to cook. Anyway, next up.
I really liked the surprise.
Yeah.
You know, and I also love the reaction shots of trying her actual cooking.
I kind of want to take some of those for like gifts or something.
Yeah, I hope they do become gifts.
Yeah.
Those are great reaction shots. Alrighty, next up. So I have a little bit of a compilation article here from Gizmodo that recaps some of this past week's toy news, or last week's toy news actually. Stuff that we did not get to get a chance to cover last week. So, you know, feel free to look at this article. I wanted to highlight one thing, which is essentially the lead story, is that Mondo has put out a 6th scale Battle Cat figure that looks incredible for the 6th scale Mondo He-Man. And that's really cool. It's an 18-inch long Battle Cat. And, you know, 6th scale is always going to be, you know, larger, and it's definitely going to be expensive because apparently it's pretty pricey with $500 5 bills, folks, $500, yo. So it's pretty expensive, but it's got 60 points of articulation. As I said, it's 18 inches long with 4 swappable heads, including a less fierce Cringer, fully removable armor, a bendable tail, and a baby Cringer minifigure. Holy cow.
Man, that's...
So apparently it's only on sale for 1 week starting. It's already started on October 25th. So go 1 week out from the 25th, basically going through November 2nd.
First, if it's a direct week out.
First. I'm sorry. You know, like I don't have a calendar in front of me. I couldn't remember when the 25th was.
Yeah. But so yeah, if you're watching this live, then you still got some time. If by the time this comes out on the audio places, you'll probably have like a day or two at most.
Right. So we recommend, if you have not watched this on video, try to.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's a lot of money. I am a type of a fan for He-Man stuff, but yeah, no, it's like now the one thing that got me in this article is that Transformers Masterpiece that's down here, which is oh, no wonder I don't know it. From the Headmasters anime, which I've actually started watching fairly recently. But it's a train transformer called Suiken from the Japanese Transformers show, and it's available for pre-order for $150, which is not surprising for those Masterpiece Transformers. I don't know if this is in here, but I believe they've reissued Jetfire for the War of Siege collection, and that's like $90. And yes, I'm possibly going to. I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it, because I didn't have a Jetfire, aka Skyfire, originally, but I kind of want it. And apparently there's a Beastie Boys figure from Intergalactic, or a set rather, that's also in here. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's from the city stomping scene in the video. I wanted to add real quick before we move on from this article, is that if I had that kind of money to spend on an action figure, and I understand, you know, if you're primarily a Masters of the Universe fan, I get it. That would be a nice chunk of change to put down for a really nice looking Cringer. But there's a giant Galactus out there.
Yes, that
cost $100
yes,
less.
that's been going out to people.
Less, folks.
The people have you seen it?
You know, I did not want to get the Galactus because I have no place to put it.
But I've seen people.
Right?
I've seen people like one dude had it on his lap. I think his daughter was hugging it. You know.
Right.
and other other things they've been doing with it. I'm like, you know what? I'm slightly jealous, but also I'm kind of with Agent 70 on this one. I have no place to put it.
Seriously. I'm like, seriously? I'm like, Galactus was only 4.
Right. I'm curious if we should ask Dirt what it was. How he feels about this, because I know he's pretty much the bigger He-Man fan of the panel.
Right.
So, but well, that'll be for another time. Next up, though, Power Rangers are morphing with Cobra Kai. So it's morphing time. Well, basically, here it is, folks. It's Power Rangers Lightning Collection. Some Rangers with a Cobra Kai's Daniel LaRusso and the morphed white Crane Ranger. 6-inch action figure. It's a set, it looks like. You can see the picture of old-ass Daniel in, looks like the Power Rangers ninja outfit. There's another one with Samantha LaRusso in the morph pink Mantis outfit. Zaputty, or whatever the bad guy is. No, that's Zaputty. Okay, it's Skelleputty, excuse me. So I guess, yeah, that's supposed to be a Cobra Kai thing. And then there's various pictures of stances for each of them. Looks like they are $27.99 a piece. Yep. And available, will be available April 23rd. So the mashup of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Cobra Kai is a thing now. Next up,
Hasbro has revealed their Star Wars The Black Series Phase 2 Clone Trooper Premium Electronic Helmet Replica. So if you're familiar with the Black Series replicas, these are kind of like the Marvel Legends, replicas. Similar. Obviously, it's also a Hasbro, a Hasbro toy line, and basically, this is the Clone Wars era precursor to the Stormtrooper helmet. Right now, the helmet is currently up for pre-order on Hasbro Pulse. What's the price on this?
120. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, it says expects. Actually, let's click through. It's the.
I was about to say I was going to click through. That's I read that, and that's why I wanted to click through.
Right, and of course they don't.
Yeah, I was about to say it doesn't go direct.
Yeah. This is also, we're not being sponsored by Hasbro, so here we go.
Here it is. I was about to say, got to scroll down, yo. There's no direct linking apparently.
$131.99.
So see, that's why I wanted to click through. It's their estimate was just a little shy.
Right, and it looks like
thank you to the supply chain.
May 1st, 2023 is the potential ship date, but we know that could also change.
There it is. Thank you.
Speaking of Marvel Legends, though, Marvel Legends comic-based Ronin the Accuser possibly revealed. This seems a leak / rumor, so take this for what it is. But from this site, there's probably a better than ever chance that it's the case.
Right.
So apparently there was a leaked image of a Marvel Legends Deluxe Blob figure. But also, I guess that picture was the cosmic-based Ronin the Accuser. It says here, we've not seen any rumored listings for that one, so it may end up being some kind of store exclusive here in the U.S., according to this article. And they said when more details are available, then they'll let folks more know. So again, this is still rumor, but like I said, this site's relatively decent about that, so it's a better than never chance.
Did you see the first line in the article?
Yeah, about the blob. Yeah, I mentioned that.
Right. So that was another reveal of a leaked image. So apparently, there's going to be a Marvel Legends Deluxe Blob figure coming out, as well as this comic-based Ronin the Accuser. And I've scaled Legends purchasing by a lot, but these are two characters that they're not high on my list of desired characters, but if I really wanted to put like a particular display together,
say a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Say again?
Say a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, a War of whatchamacallit, an Annihilation.
Yeah.
A display also. So something Kree Skrull. That's right up that alley. So
sure.
These are interesting leaks because for those of us who are amongst the Marvel Legends collectors, even with me scaling back, I've always tended towards the comics based stuff and away from the movie based stuff. So seeing the comic book based Ronin come out is a welcome sight.
Also, the Blob ain't moving for nobody.
Yep, pretty much.
Marvel,
There is a great scene. There's a great scene I would love to try to reenact in Marvel Legends form from an X-Men issue of Fall of the Mutants. And after the show, I'll point Roddykat out to it, and he'll get a kick out of it.
I think I might know the one you're talking about.
It's so clear in my head. It's so clear in my head right now.
Does it involve someone that goes snicked?
Yes.
I think I know which one, because as soon as you said that,
it's so clear. That scene is so clear in my head right now. So we'll I'm sorry, folks, that we can't share it live on the show. But if you are familiar with the X-Men, the 3 issues of X-Men that of Uncanny X-Men, that were featured under the Fall of the Mutant storyline, you'll see what I was talking about. We're going way back, again.
Boy, I'm too old for this shit.
So
yeah. Once again, I kind of wish that was one of the event shows, the evergreen shows that we ended up doing, because we have it on the
we'd
list,
have to cover more than a few books, though. We'd have to cover like whatchamacallit, Fall of the Mutants had tie-ins throughout the Marvel universe, but I guess we would cover like the main books like X Factor, X-Men, New Mutants, and maybe Fallen Angels. No, not Fallen Angels, but New Mutants.
Right. Maybe that Thor issue where he comes across Angel.
No, that's Mutant Massacre.
Oh wait, yeah, you're right. So I'm getting those confused.
Right, Fall of the Mutants. I was about to say Fall of the Mutants had a couple of tie-ins. Like I remember Daredevil had a tie-in. So, but that's something for us to discuss. Like we said, maybe if we ever get around to doing more evergreen content. Alrighty, next up, Marvel Beyond Amazing Funko Pop lineup continues with the 5-pack of Spider-Man figures, and you won't believe the characters that Funko put together for this Marvel's Beyond Amazing campaign, because they are celebrating Spider-Man's 60th anniversary. And the Marvel Year of the Spider collection continues with the Spider-Man 5-pack. Pre-orders are live on Amazon, exclusively on Amazon, for $59.99. And included in this pack, believe it or not, are Prodigy, the Hornet, Prince of Arachne, Spider Armor Mark 1 and Spider Armor Mark 2. We are talking like digging deep into the history of Spider-Man, folks.
There are some pulls
deep.
here. Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, there are certain sections of the Funko collecting community that's probably of a certain vintage that would catch all of these, or mostly, or at least the right half of it, definitely. But
exactly. And at the end of the day, the fact that they're exclusive means that at some point the price on them will go up because they're only available right now on Amazon.
Yep. Next up, it's official. Thanos is returning to the Marvel Universe. This is actually where it puts us squarely into the comic book news section. So in a new preview for Thanos Death Notes, not to be confused with the manga anime, Thanos Death Notes #1 by Marvel Comics, Thanos returns to the Marvel Universe.
I was about to say, you pronounced Thanos 2 different ways 3 times just now.
You're welcome. Gotta
love it.
People will do it. But yeah, Thanos returned in a big way as the Mad Titan takes on his most powerful form, reunites with Death, and comes into conflict with Thor. In a new first look at the upcoming Marvel Comics one-shot, Thanos officially returns as his next chapter in comics begins. See, I know Filoni does like a Twilight thing. I do Thanos. You're welcome. But yeah, so that's that, and we don't necessarily go into that any more than that. But it's a preview for that one shot, so you can check it out at your leisure. Next up.
Just in time for Black History Month 2023, DC will release an anthology-style 104-page one-shot called DC Power, a celebration, featuring work by some of the top creatives at DC, including recent graduates of the inaugural class of DC's Milestone Initiative. DC Power, a celebration #1, is written by Chuck Brown, Morgan Hampton, Stephanie William, Evan Narcisse, and others, with art by Valentine Delandro, Clayton Henry, and others. The issue will have a main cover by Janoy Lindsay and variant covers by Sozo Maikia and Taj Tenfold and Ken Lashley. The prestige format one-shot will feature stories about black superheroes in the DC universe, including Cyborg, John Stewart, Aqualad, Kid Flash, Batwing, Vixen, Amazing Man, and more. The book will go on sale January 31st, 2023, and be on the lookout for the full January solicits. Actually, they're out now.
Yes, they are.
So take a look at the full January solicitations from DC for more information.
In fact, we have those in the show notes if you are interested in that stuff. I'm not sure if Marvel's came out yet, but or other folks, but sometimes it happens that way.
I was going to add that would include the cover price for the book.
Right.
Solicitations,
right.
What that is.
Right. Nightwing reveals a full creative team and story details for 100th milestone issue. So Nightwing is getting ready to celebrate it with his 100th issue, and some of his most legendary creators are returning to help fill out the issue's creative team. Excuse me. Writer Tom Taylor and artist Bruno Redondo took over as a creative team on Nightwing 78, ushering in a new era for the formidable Wonder. During the run, well, we don't need to go through all of that, so we'll just skip to the part where it says the January solicits includes information for Nightwing 100, whose main cover is by Bruno Redondo, and it recruits the Bat Family, Titans, and Justice League for a sentimental reunion. Joining Bruno Redondo as artists on Nightwing 100 include Rick Leonardi, Scott McDaniel, Mikael Jenin, and Javier Fernandez, who have all had stints illustrating Dick Grayson's adventures over the years. Variant covers are by Jamal Campbell, Jim Lee, Jorge Jimenez, Javier Fernandez, Travis Moore, Babs Tarr, George Fornes, and Dan Mora, whose art I love. So I would love to see what that is, what that cover is going to be. The rest is going into what the solicits say, so we don't necessarily have to do so. Next up.
Last but not least this week, folks, upcoming Two-Face centric Batman comic will split artistic duties down the middle, unironically. Writer Ram V has created an ambitious theme issue of Detective Comics, which centers on Two-Face and will be drawn by two different artists. That may not sound too unique, but the gimmick is that there will be a reflective symmetry, not only between every two sets of consecutive pages, but across the length of the full comic book as well. As an added bonus, the issue will feature art by Raphael Albuquerque and Ivan Rice, two superstar artists whose styles could hardly be more different while still fitting into the mainstream corporate superhero mold. Given their strengths, one would assume that the Harvey pages will be by Rice, while the Two-Face pages will be by Albuquerque. This is just speculation by the writer of this article. So yeah, the issue, Detective Comics number 1068, is due in stores on January 24th, 2023.
And that's it, folks.
That's a cool concept.
Yeah. I mean, they've done like split stories issues before, but probably not. I'm not sure how they're going to handle this, but it is Two-Face with two different characters in one body, basically. Well, not two different characters in one body, but you know what I'm saying. He's got two different personalities in one body, I guess.
Right, and it's a different way of approaching
right.
it, and I think that's it's going to be cool looking. So when that comes out, we'll be sure to take a look at it.
Indeed, because 165 came out this week, so that's it's only in a couple of months. And with that, we are at the end of the show. Yeah, can we get one more ad read?
Our last ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including
And as we come to an end of the end of this here program, I'd like to thank each and every every one of you for coming out. Thanks Benji Games 2 for being in the audience, and anybody else who happened to be lurking in out there, whether on Twitch.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, whether on Twitch or on YouTube's. We appreciate you coming through. Or, you know, even if you come through after the fact on audio, we appreciate you listening.
Of course. You know, we're glad to help you go through your commute.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Actually, Benji Games 2 said something earlier about, what did he say? Something about the show. Hold on a second. I was going to bring up.
Scrolling.
Scrolling.
Get those message scrolling. Get the message program scrolling.
Oh, it says, absolutely, you guys have a great show, and I enjoy y'all's content, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate that very much.
Yes. And with that, I am Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Need. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt on Twitter. PopCultureNet on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com is all of the umbrella sites therein. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account, the Kliq Nation on Twitter, that's TheKliqNation, all one word on Twitter, also thekliqnation.com, and over on comicbook.com, where he's over there writing his face off.
His face off, his literal face.
I don't know how I started saying that, but you know, but nevertheless, it sticks. You could find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You could also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You can also find us recording every Thursday night, most Thursday nights, with the exception of Movie Protocol and any other issues we would have. Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time on youtube.com/thekliqnation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. And yeah, we'll be back next week. We still got another couple of weeks before Wakanda Forever, in which we will have a movie protocol.
Definitely.
We got Andor coming up. Actually, I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. As far as I remember, yeah. But yeah, please be aware that we will be going into movie protocol very soon. So we'll be sure to talk about that again
next week.
Yep. Because we'll be announcing exactly what our plans are next week.
Absolutely. Actually, and by next week, speaking of absolutely, the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror will have shown, and actually 2 days from at this moment, because it comes out on the 30th. So if you're a Simpson fan, hey, go for it. With that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.